and there was the message pass from EUMMAS to rename your names, so they will be able to deliver and to write your correct name on a certificate. Right, so good evening or good afternoon, probably. Good afternoon is still afternoon, everyone. Welcome to panel discussion related to topic of social sustainability for building inclusive societies and business communities. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Lena or Lenka Theodoulides. I am assistant professor at the Faculty of Economics at Maciej Bell University in Slovakia. I am also trying to set up a strategic management research center at European Marketing and Management Association. Within my research activities, I'm focusing on socioeconomic issues such as leadership and also diversity-related topics. For example, recent research activity which I am conducting is related to corporate global citizenship. Prior to my academic career, I work in managerial positions at several production and consulting companies in Slovakia and abroad. I would like to welcome and introduce my guest. I'm very happy that Mrs. Aušrine Šilenskite accepted my invitation to participate in this panel discussion. So Aušrine, welcome and really thanks to your excitement to join me and to run this event together. I would like to also introduce Aušrine a little bit professionally. Aušrine Šilenskite is a program manager and ambassador for internationalization at the School of Management, University of Vaasa from Finland. Aušrine research centers around strategy implementation, blockchain adoption in international business management, and innovations in business education, particularly related to social sustainability. Aušrine has received several international awards for her research and as an educator, including recognition for courses of hers such as diversity management. Throughout her academic career, she has consulted international Finnish firms and engaged in project work aimed at achieving socio-economic sustainability through industry-academia collaboration. Aušrine, would you like to add anything that will highlight the purpose of this panel discussion or the selection of the topic related to social sustainability?
Thank you so much, Lena. Really, thank you so much for a very warm and detailed professional and personal introduction. It's really great to be here with you today, and really big thanks for European Marketing and Management Association for, first of all, organizing and hosting this event on very, very important topic. So it's an absolute honor being here, and I'm fascinated by wonderful sharing. I feel we already have a community with lots of exchanges of the contacts and details. So I really feel we're going to have a wonderful discussion about the community within a very nice and inclusive atmosphere that is like striking straight away, which is amazing. So maybe one thing to add, in addition to what's been said about the webinar and this panel in sort of description, I feel that while, sort of description maybe was leaning more towards the social justice and inclusiveness and so on and so forth, I think it's really important that we discuss both of the things. So the business case for diversity but also the inclusiveness perspective. And both, the more diversity, the better, in a sense, whichever is the motivation. So that's one thing that I wanted to point. And another thing is, like, I feel already from very brief interactions with some of the participants that there are really great experiences here. So since we're discussing about the community, it will be wonderful to have your reflections in the chat and later in the discussion and the questions, and so that we can benchmark and really co-create this experience today.
Thanks, great, Ausrine. I have prepared some maybe introductory quotes to start open up the discussion. I found pretty old material from 1950, Council of Europe, Article 14, European Convention on Human Rights, and I will just cite it. Everyone must enjoy the rights enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights, regardless of skin color, sex, language, political or religious beliefs or origins. The prohibition of discrimination is closely linked to the principle of equality, which holds that all people are born and remain free and equal in dignity and rights. I must say, when I was working couple of years recently, just couple of years, when I started to work with the diversity as a topic, somehow I was surprised that is not a really new topic. It is really lasting, or it's in our society is already for some decades. So can we just start, Ausrine, to philosophize a little bit what the term social sustainability means to you, to us academics or business people? So what is the social sustainability? What the social sustainability means to you, Ausrine?
Absolutely, Lena. This is a brilliant point that you've been, making, because yes, indeed, the topics that we are discussing, it's nothing new, right? So, and the problem is that we've been discussing probably about these topics for thousands of years, and we haven't solved them yet. So that is still an issue, right? Now, there are two things sort of which I would like to discuss when talking about social sustainability. So of course, today's focus is more diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, it sits nicely with other things that falls under social sustainability. And if we think of how social sustainability has been sort of defined through various, there's dozens of things that have been named as falling under social sustainability. And the way we talk about that sort of in research and in our recently published handbook, in which you greatly contributed with a wonderful chapter, we kind of like the classification of three things, right? So one thing is about health and well-being. So anything related to this kind of a safety, well-being, health issues, and it can be both in the society and at work. So if we talk generally, we can talk about societal level well-being and health, and at the work setting, we can talk about work safety, work and free time balance and stuff like that. So there are quite a few things that are falling under those. The second thing relates to education. And again, we can take two levels. One is societal, one business. And in terms of the societal, we can talk about education for sustainable development, which is now a big thing, right? For inclusive education, access to education to everybody, in the society and so on and so forth. Within the business setting, it's extremely important thing is the upskilling, reskilling, development of certain competences. And so anything related to sort of learning within the business and organizational context. And the third thing, this is where we find diversity, equity, and inclusion, is related to the community. So anything around these topics and inclusion and so on and so forth. Now, why did I say that it's kind of a complicated, although we talk about diversity, the point is that these three things, they fall together, right? So they influence each other. And if we think of, what are the importance for education. What are the, we cannot achieve diversity and inclusion without really developing without certain skills, certain mindset, and therefore the education plays a crucial role. We will feel safe and secure and included and sort of healthy mentally and physically eventually, right? If we have a good atmosphere, if we can be ourselves. So these things fall together, even if we today, let's say, focus more on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So at least this is, I like this kind of a definition of social sustainability, and I find it very relevant if I look at the business and societal cases sort of for application and for research. I think your sound is lost. At this point, till Elena is fixing the sound, how do you reflect what social sustainability means to the participants? We can a little bit open up. Does it really resonate to what how you understood social sustainability and the link sort of with the diversity, or was it something that sort of doesn't make particularly sense, or you would say that this is a part of, does not fall as a part of the way you would understand it?
Aushirina, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, sorry, I didn't know what this happened. It just showed me the sign that my microphone doesn't work.
No
Okay.
worries, you're here, so we just can continue.
Good. So actually, you raised the question for the audience. Is anyone would like to contribute since Aushirina raised this open question?
At least for now, silence. So feel free to put it in the chat, the reflections, if you have any, and then meanwhile we continue the discussion if no immediate comments.
Oh, right. So if I just recall very briefly, can we at the first part of our panel discussion, can we a little bit focus on the business environment first, and then we will shift towards education? Is that okay, Afshin?
Absolutely.
Okay. Talking about the diversity management, because my expertise are mainly focusing on diversity management practices, and of course living and working in Slovakia, I'm always curious to have a look to research findings and compare Slovakia as, okay, one of the European countries, but to compare maybe with other all the European countries and statistics related to how they tackle, for example, gender, race equality. And just to give some data, the global gender gap in 2023 states that the share of companies in Slovakia where women are in top managers positions was around 23%. And the highest, the country which scores the highest is Latvia, where around 33% of women are in top managerial positions. Okay, Turkey is not within the EU, but just to mention who scored the lowest was the Turkey, was around less than 4%. So and also giving a McKinsey research, giving some data about US and Canada, which somehow I assume or the percentage will be much higher than Slovakia, and actually was not that much higher, was 28% of women are represented in top management positions, and within 5 years was very small increase, just by 6%. So what I am, while I brought up this data, this statistics, referring to gender equality, which probably the countries like your country or Slovakia, that we are already within the European Union, and my assumption was that we are working on these diversity issues, and the results, they show that we are still very, but that we haven't done a big progress. When we are doing research in Slovak companies, a lot of managers are trying to make a good impression by showing that they have a 50-50 percent of women and men overall, but when we are researching the top managerial positions, then the percentage is very, very low. Well, based on this data, it means that gender equality as one topic related to diversity management is still an issue. Do you think that the most famous concept, diversity, equity, and inclusion, hasn't come across in business communities yet, or maybe the academia or academics are not passing or not really educating the business managers about the gender equality and diversity issues enough?
This is a very interesting question, Lena, and let me frame it a little bit to the other side. I feel that what we are definitely, as a researchers, what we're definitely doing wrong is we're definitely suggesting the wrong statistic measures. So to me, whenever it comes about talking about the gender, I think that the way gender has been measured and the way we have been structuring discourses around gender from the research point of view and number point of view is already very biased and wrong. So I mean, we're still, we as researchers very frequently, and this has unfortunately landed now to the legal frameworks where we are, you know, asking from CSRD reporting the gender balance and so on and so forth, and the measures that have been suggested are male and female. I mean, but we have more gender identities out there, right? So we have third gender. We're not talking about that. We are not talking about reverse discrimination when talking about gender, right? So whenever we're pushing statistics, we're still suggesting that, you know, that someone taking certain position is a good thing and someone not taking certain position is a bad thing. So to me, what we have really done bad is really we have not questioned the statistical measures that we apply. Right. And I think this is sort of because why I'm emphasizing this, because as soon as we start the gender or foreigner or whatever kind of a major discourse around, there are certain messages that I think they have been quite vocally raised, but they don't lead us to the communal discussion about the problem. They lead us to further friction, where we're trying to blame men and emphasize that women need the positions, right? Because this is the measures, this is the communication that we're getting through the measures. And I think that when we have measures that have certain agenda pushed forward with very strong assumption forward, that immediately becomes a problem for diversity and inclusion, because we're kind of trying to say that because you guys are occupying the thing, this is bad, right? And maybe we have plenty of men who would love to stay somewhere and who actually are feeling so pressured and stressed, and that they have to be breadwinners, they have to be in these positions, and they definitely don't want to be there, right? There are those who want, but same the females, right? So if you go for the research and you can see that it's not that this is many times it shows that actually many females themselves don't volunteer for being promoted, or when being asked to become a CEO, they refuse. Or that, so sort of there's another part of research that shows that certain motives or under self-evaluation of females don't lead them to certain positions being taken, right? So I feel what we should definitely work on is the way we measure things and what we are communicating with these measures, rather than sort of focusing more on these general, very strong dichotomies that we've created out there.
Well, true. On the other hand, maybe I will tease you a little bit or oppose to you.
Please. That's why we're having a panel here, right?
But we have to start somewhere. There has to be certain starting point. Because I'm okay, I understand what you are saying, that it's much more complex view and to elaborate much more what is the behind of the statistic data. But still, there is kind of starting point to maybe also discover or to see what are certain stereotypes, societal stereotypes that are coming into this topic. And me as a working and living in Slovakia, even before I was living in foreign countries, I can see that there is a lot of stereotypes and stereotyping issues when we are talking about the gender equality, or what is the role of women in the society. And I have another data. I really try to pick up the data that somehow gives some base for discussing what can we really do, maybe also to with the stereotypes. 44% of Europeans think that a woman's most important role is to take care of the home and the family, and 43% of Europeans think that the man's most important role is to earn money. Women in the EU spend 22 hours a week taking care of a household and children, while men spend only 9 hours. So what comes into this society, and that is also then maybe kind of obstacle for women to be brave enough to compete or to speak up and be brave to apply or to have the desire. And I try to avoid the word fighting for a managerial position, but sometimes it seems to me that there is a kind of that the woman has to fight.
I mean, I don't deny that there are situations where women have to fight. I mean, I myself identify, I'm a female by gender, I identify as a female, right? What I'm trying to say, and I can continue sort of maybe elaborating on my idea, is that communicating or throwing out these data to the face of those who discriminate will not change much, right? It's if you think of fighting the stereotypes, we cognitively, and now I'm going to the psychology, right? Cognitively, a human being has a very defensive position. So whenever my beliefs are sort of exposed in a negative manner, or whenever my beliefs are being opposed or kind of questioned, naturally as a human being, I'll block myself, right? So if I am a person who believes that this is the way you sort of show the statistics, and I keep pushing that statistics forward, this will not help me to change my views, right?
Well, definitely, of course.
Yeah, so I'll only further move back to my position, and I will not sort of, there'll be no solution. That's why I've said that it leads only to more friction, right? So you're absolutely right that it's important to measure certain things, and it's important to see how the things are. But at the same time, it's very important to structure this dialogue without making anybody feel, or at least to diminish the feeling that I'm actually threatening here. And so if we look, and also let me give you some data as well. If you look on the organizational research that has been done, so it's very clear from the statistics that if, let's say, diversity management training is being organized in a company, and if it's obligatory to everybody, it usually gives quite a negative impact on the organization by forcing in certain people and certain managers coming in and listening how we have to be inclusive and how we have to be now love everybody and respect everybody and promote females and so on and so forth. Whereas, when it's voluntarily, it's taken like so much lighter in many ways, right? What actually works in diversity management sort of in changing of organizations from the diversity management perspective is mentoring. Why mentoring works? Because this is the moment where sort of two people are placed in a position where they can talk. And so there has been a situation where, let's say I've been talking with one vice president, and actually this is recorded as an interview, as a podcast. I can share the YouTube link. That was very lovely. Female leader in a technology industry. And if we think of technology has been always an industry where, let's say, female leadership has been scarce. And so she's a vice president in the organization. And she's giving fantastic example where, like, she could have felt being discriminated because the top management team would always set the meetings of the board in the certain hour, which is usually late in the daytime, where is exactly the time when she needs to go and pick her children from the daycare, right? And when she raised this question in the board as like, why are you not having the time more inclusive for me so I can also be a part of the gang, they didn't even think of it because they don't have that problem, right? So what I'm trying to say is that what is important is to, before we lead to certain conclusions and judgments, we really need to open up the debate. What does it really mean? Because yes, there are the cases when women are deliberately being discriminated, or any other underrepresented group. So we kind of just took this one example, but it can be race, it can be age, it can be anything else, it can be ability or so on, right? But there are also moments where we face those situations simply because the others, because they have not experienced certain environment or setting, behave without really considering that there is another side of the story, right? And if we jump too quickly to the conclusion, like, oh yeah, this is what they think about me, this is how they treat me, this is how, without saying, look, I really feel that this is probably not the right way to go for it, right? Or I would love to be a part of it and I would like to contribute my share, but I have to pick on my children or something like that, right? So why don't we, so meaning if we are orienting more to the solution, how we move from there, we can achieve so much more, and we could get off this defensive reactions that typically happen when we are forced into and I mean, we can talk about anything. I remember having a conversation about the sexual orientation, and some people who I really respect, and they are some of my family members, right? They were saying, I hate these pride parades. Like, why do they have to put this, into my face and go with their flags? And it's like, why it's sort of out there and I have to listen to this. And sort of, and on one hand, like, yeah, I can say, yes, I understand. This is the point which triggered, and we're kind of, it triggered defensive reaction because that kind of, you throw this, like what you now throw the data at me, right? So the same thing, I can go and wave the rainbow and throw that, like, this is my sexual orientation, right? But then at the same time, like I engaged in the conversation with that person and asked and said, like, look, on one hand, you're right. Yes, you're being sort of, you have certain different values, and I have certain values. Like, I don't mind them going and waving I have friends who are from this community and sort of, but to me, I also understand why they are doing that. Because if you think of how the women were fighting for their rights, they were also going to the street and asking the voting rights, right? Until they got it there. And so I gave a fact which kind of related to something that person understands and respects. And I was like, and if you think of their rights, they are at the place where the females have been 100 years ago. So all they're trying to do is not to throw, their sexual orientation at your face, but they're simply trying to raise awareness that simply they all want to do in the society is being respected. And I'm saying, why do you think people don't go and do the pickets in Finland? Why there's just a Pride Month where, but there is no like aggressive things, because everything is allowed here. You can get married, you can get children, you can whatever. And do people go mad about that? No, because they have simply no more reason to fight for that, right? So they've gotten their rights. All they want to be is the people in the society. They want to live their life. That's it. And that was really a functional conversation, rather than me saying, oh, you are homophobic or blah blah blah, and this is the opinions there. So that's what I'm saying, that we always have to sort of bridge the mindsets, and this is the moment where we can say that yes, there are certain stereotypes, but so what, right? What do we do with them? And this is the way I see forward, and at least has been working around, and also the data says the same thing, that when we open up and create spaces for conversation and discussing so what, it helps out. And that's why mentoring, for example, is one of the most functional ways in organizations, because this is where you can understand the other side of the story both ways, right? So that the somebody understands that, oh, they're actually not discriminating, they simply have not thought about it. And of course, if you are figuring out in the mentoring process that it's the deliberate discrimination, that you probably don't want to work in that organization, right? So it's also beneficial for you.
From your professional experiences, do you think that a business environment is open to discuss and to talk about this kind of sometimes sensitive topics?
It very much depends on organization, and very much depends on the culture as well. So I'm Lithuanian. Okay, so in my culture, we're used to discuss, like, open up the conversation and throw all the opinions on each other. That doesn't always end in a very peaceful discussion, right?
At least you started to talk.
Yes, and in Finland, where I currently live, well, currently for the last 14 years, the culture is very silent. Okay, we don't discuss things here, and we don't necessarily open conversation. And I'll give the space, or sort of the society goes like, I'll give you the space, but like if there is a conflict, we may not necessarily discuss it. And you do have situations where the conflict is there, but we don't necessarily open the conversation. So, and there are, of course, organizations that even within these cultures, as we know, the national and organizational cultures, they are influenced, but not necessarily the same, right? And of course, we know that within every society, again, there are different individuals who frame their mindsets differently. So I would say that definitely not all organizations are ready to discuss. And the mindset of the managers, of course, is very heavily influencing how the organization is going to be. We know that from theory, we know that from practice. The ages of upper echelon theory, which very much designs or that has been carried out and tested over the years, is that the features of the manager, the mindsets of the manager, heavily defined. And this is now going a bit ahead into our discussion into education part. This is where I think we as educators in the higher education institution, especially where we are providing the professional training. Of course, the school is very important, because if we can get already that mindset there, then we'll have so much easier job in the professional training, right? let's say, even if, let's say, there hasn't been specific mindset shaped in the general education, I still think that this is then the role of us educators, at least trying to bring up to the attention certain frameworks, and again, from the perspective not exposing that, hey, you don't have to these values, hey, you don't have to this mindset, because diversity is difficult. What I think the current biggest mistake is that there's so much of and diversity has been made a business today. So you started with this, like, diversity is not a new topic. Yes, diversity has been nicely packaged, reshaped, and made fantastic business, right? How many DEI consultants are out there? How many DEI spokesmen and advocates and blah, 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 and speakers who get thousands of euros for their, like, that they're going and waving the flags and like, yeah, we have to be inclusive and stuff like that, right? Diversity has been made a fantastic business today, right? And I think this is a problem because we're getting the backlash, because they don't talk about the problems. They don't talk about the challenges. They don't talk that diversity is difficult. They don't talk that diversity doesn't always work. They don't talk about that you have to have a very specific skill set, and that you have to train yourself all the time if you want to be inclusive and make it work, and so on and so forth, right? And then we have, again, this friction where we have somebody shouting for diversity, and kind of even managers who would like to consider that. But with the first mistake or with the first failure, they go like, oh, diversity doesn't work for me, right? And sort of we go back where we were. So, yeah.
So talking that is pretty complicated, very broad, very complex. So many interrelated issues are covered. We started to cooperate when you, as an editor, you started to create a book which was already published in Palgrave, and is about the social sustainability. And there is very international team of authors and variety of topics. So I'm just wondering, Shrine, how actually did you set up the content of the book, which would probably address the most challenging issues related to diversity? Or how did you, what was your, as the main editor, what was your broader a picture that you would like in this book to be described or pointed out?
This is a very broad question with several questions in it, so let me try to tackle it.
Well, because you mentioned I contributed with one chapter.
Yes.
Okay. Now I receive a version of the final book. So right now I'm discovering who wrote what. But you, as an editor, you were reading all our chapters. You were really doing enormous job. Really, thanks a lot. Giving us a feedback, and especially talking from my experience. It was. You had a really lot of energy and a lot of patience, and I was just wondering, since the book is targeted education for diversity, I got that this is kind of the scheme, the overall aim of the book. Then how or what topics you consider really crucial to be in that book in order to deliver the message that we really need to educate, and what shall we then educate?
So, I don't know if that's going to disappoint you or not, but we were really thinking of the business case. Okay. And if you look at the structure of the book, it literally goes through, because again, and why, how to say, why the business case? So there's a lot of social cases there as well, as you've seen now, right? So I'm not saying that there is no social justice case there for diversity. There's plenty of it. But like, when working with organizations and businesses specifically, you frequently see that whenever it comes to the discussion to the diversity, and especially with top management teams, they go like, look, but eventually business has to have a profit, right? So I just cannot hire everybody and be very inclusive. Like, even if I want to as a person, right? Eventually I want to do good business. And yes, if it does good, it does good, right? And so if you look at the structure or the chapters that have been there, so the first part is really about strategy, right? How do you design strategy and digital strategy and other kind of strategy with social sustainability in mind, right? And even cases, business cases that we have there also shows that it's not easy. It's not that it's easy just come up with something, right? And even if you're the first corporation and multinational corporation with the fantastic case for environment, and you've been nailing it and you've been designing it, but then when it comes to social, it's challenging. And so the first part really kind of focused on, okay, if we teach and if we want to have these managers going to the market leading economic activity, how do we even help them to comprehend something which is super hard to measure? And if you look at the challenges for diversity implementation in organizations, the first thing is like, how do I prove it? How do I prove it's functional? How do I prove it's impactful, right? I mean, let's be honest, managers talk first about money and finances, right? And if you don't have numbers, well, then let's get to another topic, right? So the first topic is really about how do I sustain competitive advantage? So if we look at the two chapters, colleagues from Ukraine have fantastic contribution on circular economy. So how do you frame the whole sort of circularity discussion around it? We with colleagues have a chapter on human factors engineering, where the cases that are embedded as a short one in addition to where it really says that, look, if you don't think of the safety at work, if you don't think of the well-being at work, this is how directly it impacts your competitive advantage. And we were blessed to have a consultant who've been working with dozens of organizations, and we picked some of the very interesting cases, real ones, and made them as a mini cases, right, reflecting the real stories that we could bring as educators to our lectures and sort of trainings, right? This is all about competitive advantage. Colleagues from US contributed another fascinating project where really, again, they're talking about measuring social impact. How do you take this? So it's really, the first part is really about measuring, learning about creating competitive advantage. And even it's about social business. So yes, even if I go for social business, we have a fantastic case on Africa and social entrepreneurship, right? So I still have to think about money, right? I still have to sustain the business. I still have to work on that basic thing, right? Otherwise, I can have fantastic idea, but it's not living forward, right? So that was the first part. The second part was really something that we were looking at, going and this is meaning the first part. So when I'm talking the first part, so we have these topics to teach, but then also the methods to teach, right? So sort of, but it's and then the cases to. So the first part, as I named it, is actually first three parts now when I'm looking at the content. And then the second part was like, okay, so if we talk about sustainable development, what does it really mean in the education of business, right? And we have excellent examples from with a very, very impactful teaching practices of how to bring sustainable development. And there we go beyond just business case, right? So there we go to the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals from UN, which typically are not addressed in business education: poverty, societal health, hunger, right? How do you bring these topics among, of course, more traditional ones, sustainable production and consumption and similar, right? But that was sort of something that doesn't happen in every school yet. Hopefully it will with these examples, right? But that was sort of something, the idea was to showcase that, okay, look, yes, while we are doing good business and business education, but these are the projects that opens up the horizons, right? When we're talking about really making an impact. And then of course, where your beautiful chapter sits, then we thought, okay, what's next? So we've developed strategy. We understood that business can have way more impact, and business education can have way more impact than just a business impact, right? But then let's think of how to sustain it. And we know that every strategy dies if there is no culture, right? If the culture doesn't fit. So again, very business, I'm sitting in strategic business development. My research area is exactly that, right? So, okay, so we all know that culture eats strategy for breakfast. What happens? So, and this is the point where we get to this mindset development, where we get to the skill set development, how I am able to develop others and myself to be more inclusive, to be more open up, to understand, to evaluate, to lead these conversations that not just expose and create frictions, but actually that it leads to something that we can focus on developing solution, right? And then comes this section on role modeling certain behaviors that students can bring, the learners can bring to the their organizations, followed by the 3 cases on leadership, on socially sustainable leadership. And final part of the book was really about, okay, so let's think of a little bit of a bird's view. So it's not, necessarily like for everybody, but like if I'm the person designing the education, right? Because it depends on the school. So some teachers have freedom to design their courses. Some are just inheriting their certain curriculum that they have to teach, and all they can do is throw some examples of a little bit, but if I'm a person who is designing education, either be it course, be it a program, or be it being the whole institutional environment, right? Or if I have an influence to work with scholarly community, what are the good practices? What are the good structures? And this is sort of the final part of the book, where we are very much then talking to those who are at different levels designing education. So what they can do to do the social structure, to bring social sustainability. And why it was so broad? Yes, we have. It's amazing. It was a very heavy lifting, but it's amazing that we have the contributions from every continent. Starting from Australia and Oceania and ending with Latin America, Americas, Africa, Europe, Asia, which is great. And the whole and sort of, we also thought that yes, we're aiming for the scope, but at the same time we recognize that something that fits in Slovakia may not fit in Finland or something, but there may be certain principles, and that's why, exactly as you've heard, that we requested all the contributors to shape their chapters in a specific way. So there is, the place where you position it with a certain SDGs, with a certain goals that we're trying to solve. Then there is a certain theory behind it, or certain educational principles, or certain pedagogical, framework, or something like that, where I can learn, I can develop my skills, I can enhance my worldview of how things could be taught and understand the major idea. And then there is an example, local example of how have I done it, how I have applied it, right? How, what can be done. So when I'm reading it, I can think of, okay, I've developed my skills, I broadened the horizon as educator, because, this is the skill set I can use. But then there are a couple of advices of, okay, how much this really fits me? How can I navigate that? And sort of that was the chapter structure then, or sort of the structure in the chapter. So in that sense, I really hope that we achieved it. And now that this will inspire further innovations, because that's what we write. It's just a scratch on the surface. The rest is in the hands of us in different schools in different parts of the world to bring a change and really make it work.
Absolutely, absolutely, Oshina. I really see that it was a huge job. Not only that the book has 600 pages, but the structure and the focus is in a variety scopes. I think gives pretty complex picture what should be done. And that is also my my question right now. I mean, what would you probably advise as a starting point for educator who would like to start to educate in social sustainability. And has a space, it has a autonomy to create own course, or maybe to which topics probably you would suggest are crucial or are fundamental to start with. Maybe like I'm teaching international management subject in one semester. And yes, I would like to have maybe 2 or 3 sessions related to diversity management. So what do you consider as number one or starting topics that I should start with?
Okay, I'm not sure if you're going to like my answer, but my answer is not going to be that easy.
No problem. Go on.
So no, but this is a brilliant question. So there's nothing. It's just that let's put it this way. Anything related to social sustainability, like it's a social context, right?
Mm.
So if I suggest you a topic, or let me answer it from, let me start where my thinking is coming from, okay? So yeah, so first of all, social sustainability is a contextual thing for the time, for the culture, for the country, for the even certain contemporary events, if we think about it, right? So just, you know, in the beginning of introduction of this event, we had Hannah reflecting on the work that is being done led by Hannah, you know, in terms of mental health support and so on and so forth in Ukraine, right? This is absolutely the biggest topic there. And if I'm going to tell to someone like that to say, well, no, you have to talk about safety at work. I mean, this is definitely not their first priority, right? So that's what I mean by saying that it's very contextual. And so if you think, and the second thing to consider is from the change management perspective, we're most ready for change when we see the need for it. Okay, it's so hard to implement change, but when nobody feels a crisis and when nobody feels that the crisis is coming, right? So yes, there are some cultures in the organizations or in the societies that have mastered this idea of, okay, we need to be looking at the future, but it's not natural for a human being. Okay, we usually have a crisis and then we're like, oh God, now we have to do something about that, right? And that's sort of the myopic thinking and very you know, we know that we are the most flawed creatures in the earth, although we never want to accept it, right? So we have so much flaws in our thinking that we also have to think about them when we're talking about impact. And now I'm talking about us as educators who want to make an impact. So if we want to be smart and do an impact, we really have to think of the human flaws and how to utilize them for our benefit, right? So if there is a very big debate currently ongoing in the country, or some situation or something happening, or like, you know, we have now big issues coming, talking about the foreign integration in Finland, for example, right? We had, and in general, sort of massive migration has been some topic that has in general not you know, before Ukraine we had another massive wave of migration with a lot of debates of how do we handle that in European Union and so on and so forth, right? So very much depending, I would say, on the issues that are currently hot topics in the society, I would pick from those, because this is, everybody wants to talk about them, right? But like what we discussed is that, yes, so you got your audience, you got the interest because everybody's talking about that. But now let's talk about them in a structured manner, in a manner that leads to the solution and not just another exaggeration of emotions and whatever, right? And even you write yourself and sort of and provide, like, if we can really look at the questions and reflective, and if we can get this process rational, and if we can bring this rationality to the way we think and the way our learners think, you know, that's already the impact. So I would not like you to suggest the topics, but I would like you to suggest a principle. So principle number 1, find the hot topic, right? Principle number 2, try to think how the human flaws can be bent into your benefit, how you can structure the thinking, knowing the culture, knowing the institutional environment in which you're embedded, knowing the level of the students, how mature they are, to really start debating the things, right? And I think your self-emphasized is like, what is the expectation? What is the reality? And it's ongoing process, right? So the measures, you know, sort of it's a continuous life learning process, right? And third thing is like really try to avoid this good and bad discussion. And this is why I'm emphasizing the business case, right? Because we'll never agree about good and bad. Okay, never. We are human beings, and this debate of what is good and what is bad has been like for thousands of years, and we still have no agreement, because for you this is good, for me this is bad. Okay, and we both are right, because, you know, depending on the point of view we're looking at. So okay, if we are having this problem, how can we live with this? What can we do that eventually we would find a way to move onwards, right? So another thing which I think is very important to direct attention is that, you know, if we think of the challenges for diversity, let's say diversity implementation in the organizations, we always try to complain about the structural constraints. Oh, there is a gender inequality. Oh, there is not enough of legal support. Oh, there is not enough of money. Oh, we don't have time, right? So we are always, again, referring to human psychology, we're always trying to blame the external factors and to avoid looking internally into that. Actually, the problem is our mindset. You know, in India, they even invented a very nice term called jugad, which means frugal innovations, right? When you don't have resources, you don't have institutions, but you still get around the problem, right? And this is sort of the frugal innovation concept. So, and with the diversity, frugal innovations are not that obvious, because this is something that kind of is about doing good things, but then, you know, not measurable, not clear, not whatever, right? So really trying to frame this thinking of learners and look, let's move away from these discourses. Let's move away from this generalization. Let's move away from these blaming external structures and saying that this don't work. Let's look at our mindset. Let's look at our skill set, because even if we have a mindset, then what happens next? I'm trying to engage with diversity, as I mentioned already, sort of, it doesn't work, or I'm not feeling good about how it works. And then it's like, oh, it's challenging. Suddenly, it's not like what these consultants are saying. Diversity doesn't work because it's challenging, you know? And then I fail. So first opening the mindset and then giving them the skill set if we talk about diversity.
Wonderful. This is good that this panel discussion is recorded, because then when the semester will start, I have to go back to your advices and really put a lot of ideas. You really make me think. Wonderful, Aušrine. And this is really a good starting point to open up Q&A session, or doesn't have to be a question and debate. I would like to invite participants, colleagues to join our panel discussion and to contribute with your experiences, with also what Aušrine said, maybe the topics that in your country, in your culture, are the topics that you are trying to find the answers. So let's start, and I'm opening the debate and the discussion.
Yes, and as our colleagues from EUMMAS are mentioning that, welcome to open up the camera as well. It's always great to see you. and of course, if you know, we know that there's bad internet connection or anything, so if that's the case, don't worry. Feel free to open the microphone and share the question or the comment. Yes, no worries, as mentioned. So sort of, we know you saw we had the technical issues on the way. So there is definitely, you know, understandable things. But welcome to join the discussion. And yes, Hannah, please.
Thank you very much. I was very excited to hear so many topics were like raised and so many terms I know because I'm teaching intercultural communications and I have a project in intercultural development of city. And I just wanted to mention that in Ukraine we have now new dimensions of diversity because people, men and women who came from the war, wounded, they have a new reality. They need to be reintegrated in the society. They're not civilians anymore. They're not soldiers anymore. We try to promote this culture of respect for those who served. Like it happened in the United States. If you've been to the United States, whenever a soldier is going everywhere, he has like greetings and thank you for your service. Everyone is telling you thank you for your service whenever you go. One more thing, we have more people with disabilities now in the society. So the question of inclusiveness is like really urgent right now. So I don't have answers. I'm just telling you that we have so many different and like different understanding of what intercultural development now means and what diversity means. And we are, I hope we're moving somewhere, you know, in a, I don't know where, but I hope we will moving to a better place. At least now we can accept many types of expressions of human beings, and we can be maybe more, we're moving to humanity, of course. So this is it. This is all from my side.
Thank you,
And again,
Hannah.
if you need speakers for any events, I have like many things to say and I have many topics to cover, so.
Wonderful. And actually, we're having the project ongoing now, European project for diversity, equity, and inclusion in small and medium enterprises, where we touch exactly the questions of people with disability, but also the other questions that you raise. So let's, let's connect and we could maybe interview you as well, and your insights would be amazing. So I saved your contact and I shared my email earlier. Let's connect on LinkedIn as well, and I'm sure we will be very glad to stay in touch. Sibyl, great to have you. I'm sorry if I
I'm
mispronounced.
so sorry to be so late.
No worries, it's recorded, and so you can always get back to the discussion. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. But
my name is actually Sibyl.
Sibyl.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
I'm German by origin, so yeah, it's Sibyl Heilbronn. That's my name.
Wonderful. And I felt you have a question or a comment. Was it?
No, I didn't listen. I didn't hear you. I just got in 5 minutes ago.
Okay, wonderful. No worries, but great to have you with us. So we just sort of ended the monologue or discussion, and now we are entering to the open panel discussion where we engage participant reflections, and Hannah shared the first one, which was amazing. So any other questions or comments or something that you still would like to hear from us, or continue talking, or maybe discuss more. And I know that Lena still had a few questions, I think, that we still haven't covered. So if we don't have any specific questions, we can pick it up on something that's left from our side. But it's quite important that we hear from you and your interests as well.
Well, I will continue with my questions. Maybe Hannah somehow encourage the idea that I was also having in my mind. Sometimes I really feel that in my close community, and I think, Aushirina, you mentioned that also, like, if I remember, that the culture in Finland is more quiet. But I think in Slovakia and in a community, in a small town, because I don't live in the capital, our university is in the central part of Slovakia. For a couple of years, I see that the topic about gender, about LGBT, about even any other marginalized groups or Roma or something, that the people, they don't want to talk about. Like it's bothering them. Also in the business, okay, as you mentioned, the business, they want to make a profit and trying a new innovations in the social area. Either they are afraid or they are not really experienced or they don't want to be bothered. But opening the discussion, and especially in academia, I understand this is a must. This is really our role. Okay, business have their own goals. Maybe they are not that much keen on talking about and understanding that in the society it's a variety of various groups that we should consider and include in our life. And I like to talk to young students. I mean, that's our job. But still, maybe the pandemia make us more quiet and not so much keen on discussing.
I see your issue, and I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely think I have developed a couple of best practices after 14 years in Finland. How to start the discussion?
How to say
So,
it?
so, you know, as we discussed that whenever we start touching on something sensitive, it can hurt. It can hurt others. It can hurt our views. It can hurt. So how to do that, right? The easiest way, and particularly in some cultural settings, and it's not just, you know, small, like certain countries or like what you mentioned, also smaller communities and sensitive communities, sort of where the sensitive topics are hard to uplift. I always find a great way to talk about how do I feel, okay, or tell a story. So there are many situations where, you know, instead of saying, oh, well, there is this and that, or we have a problem, because nobody wants to acknowledge, especially the sensitive problems, is sort of telling the story what happened, or telling somebody's story, right? Telling a story how I felt, how this person felt and what happened, right? And referring to the book that we've discussed, we have exactly one case like that on implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion in one German/South African organization, where the whole case is a story, right? So how they discuss the stories. And I absolutely love the approach, because I find it very important to open up this situation. So for example, so for many, you know, from the educator's point of view, I want to start a discussion as an educator. How do I start in a very neutral way to talk about stereotypes or biases or something, right? So, and I teach diversity now for 7 years, 8 years, and I teach it online, right? It was like a crazy thing, like how can you teach diversity online with an impact? And so, well, there's a chapter on that. I can share it. There's a whole methodology described at the moment, but like, how do I open it and how do I bond with students? And they're usually a big course. So we're talking about 100 students in the course. With simple email, like, hi guys, I really, you know, I'm happy to be here. We start with something. And then as soon as they're starting doing some first activities that are designed for them, I start sharing them via communication, my story. So I'm saying, look, you are now doing a reflection on your own biases. You know, let me tell you about my biases. And I pick on something really sensitive to them. So for example, I'm saying, look, you know, I, as a teacher, one of the most crucial biases, how do I evaluate your work? Okay, how I'm sure that I am really honest and that I am just to all of you, that I don't have any misjudgments about your profile, about your name, about something. And I was like, you know what was the heaviest bias for me to consider? And, you know, I don't say that I don't have biases until now. I do plenty of them. And I tell them many times about different. I was like, let me talk today about the bias for those who are submitting the work early. So, whenever I see somebody submitting before the deadline, I used to think that these people are like careless, or they just want to get rid of the course. And in the course, something like diversity management, I feel that this is like, what are you guys doing here, in a sense, right? And I put them in the story and say, do you know what I do to make sure that I'm not looking and not judging by the time you're submitting? I'm saying, look, my strategy is, so I look first of all at those submissions, I read them through, and I really force myself thinking like how much you are like judging them, that they're poor, that they're good. And I'm trying deliberately to pick up the positive things about those works that have been submitted. That's one thing. And the second thing is when I actually do the evaluation. So I'm kind of like really questioning my assumptions and very deliberately questioning my assumptions. And the second strategy, then when I actually evaluate that, I list you alphabetically so that the submission time is hidden. So sort of, and I tell them that. And then can be another thing. I'm evaluating their work. And then, I would literally go to a very personal story. Mm-hmm. And even if you're doing it online, if you've communicated through the perspective of, look, I'm not perfect, right? And I'm not here to judge you. Because the biggest thing that we're fearing as humans is judgment, right? And at the very bottom line, when somebody asks you, why do you promote diversity? Because I'm selfish. I don't care about the business case. I don't care. I'm selfish. Because I want to be not judged. I want to live in the society where, I don't need to worry that there's some neighbor who is hungry next to my house and maybe going to attack me because they have no other way to handle their daily being. I'm selfish. And I'm not bothered to admit that. Yes, I also think this is good. Okay. And yes, I also think this brings, but eventually. And so when you talk to those managers about, doing good, or like, why do you have to bring diversity to your organization? Like, aren't you selfish? Don't you think about how, that this benefits you personally? If your employees are happy, they're going to listen to your strategies much better than they're not happy, because they will keep complaining about you. So why don't you talk to them and make sure that their well-being at work is guaranteed? Because it's so much easier than to you to come and talk and say, that, look, guys, now we have a new plan for developing an innovative green strategy. Let's do it together. And they're going to work with you as a team. I'll never forget a real story that I learned when consulting one firm. And so, well, it was a big case on strategy implementation. And actually, one lovely article came out on showing, with the research evidence, how prejudgments can screw up the whole strategy implementation in a big company, in a multinational corporation. So happy to share that in the chat later. So sort of, it's a real company with a real organization, and how literally judgments about each other resulted either in strategy, corporate strategy being implemented or not implemented, right? But then in the unit where where the strategy was implemented best, I was speaking with the manager, and this story kind of I keep telling to everyone I can, and so let me tell you that story now. Sort of, the typical situation. So the cost pressure, because we're talking about Finland and India. And sort of, as we know, many companies go to emerging markets for low costs, right? So which means that whatever strategy is there, they're going to say, well, we don't care about it. People just keep the costs low, right? Yeah. And so what happens is that I'm going to that unit in India. I'm talking to employees, and all employees like, wow, our manager, he's taking care of us so well, and he's taking care about our well-being. Although I know very well that they're working overtime, they're taking work home and so on. But everybody's like, wow, he's taking care of us. He's like our dad. He's like amazing. And it's such a great, it's like a family. And although we're talking about 500 people unit, right? So no, we're like a family. And you know what he did? I was like, what he did? So the last thing what he did was that he told us, like, when we were in such a pressure to deliver, to deliver the new thing, like, I don't remember what was the deadline, but sort of, he said, look, I care about you. You're so overworked. So I want you after 7 p.m. to go home. And that was pre-COVID I'm talking. where the office work was really present in a sense, and everybody was still working in the office. So I want you after 7 p.m. to go home. And to motivate you to go home to your families, we're switching off AC, air conditioning, and we're talking about India, right? So sort of like so that you would really go home, spend time with your families, and you know, you really take care of yourself. And so I'm finally, after doing all this groundwork with the employees, I'm coming to the manager for the interview, and sort of we talk about different things, about strategy, about the implementation, and I go like, wow, this was so nice of you. Everyone is talking about like what you've done, and it's like incredible that you have such a pressure for, you know, for the low costs, and so you're still so amazingly able to take care of your employees. And he goes like, do you want to know the real story? I was like, yeah. And he goes like, well, you know, actually, yes, this is exactly what you're saying on one hand, meaning that, yes, the headquarters from Finland came to us and said that do whatever, but cut the cost to this level. And yes, I could do the regular things, go and say and communicate to my employees saying, yeah, we have another cost pressure, so we cut on something, cut on social benefits or whatever. But what we did instead is that we actually decided that we care about the people. So we calculated that if we switch off air conditioning, fixed costs will run us sort of, you know, will go us to the level of the cost that we are asked to. And so, yes, of course, I could say that now we're switching off air conditioning, so, you know, you can suffocate in the office. But of course, we didn't choose to do that. So we said, you know, we addressed the situation because we do know that they're overworked. And yes, we do know they still carry the work to home and they continue working home, but they feel good. And I mean, you can tell that this is a nasty manipulation. Yes, on one hand, it's a nasty manipulation from the perspective of like literally using the sensitive point of people and, you know, turning this to your benefit. And yet at the same time, he really cared about the people. So he, first of all, did not cut any benefits or anything. He thought of the solution of how to still handle the business case without really hurting employees, and at the same time, keeping them motivated and happy at work. So eventually, they were doing exactly the same thing as they were doing before, but they were remaining motivated, remaining happy at work, and feeling that they are taken care of, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's not that we should not discuss about what is good or bad, because the same situation can be evaluated from the perspective of doing good and doing bad and just getting another profitability. And I do think that most of them eventually kind of had this feeling that, yes, they do understand it, right? But it's still so much better feeling to know that somebody is thinking of you, even if there is this pressures for profit and costs, rather than just thinking that they're treating you as a trash and then whatever, because it's just the business, right? So it's up to us.
Excellent example, Oshrin. Excellent. And really, these are the life stories that make us to think that, yeah, we can do the things slightly different, or okay, maybe manipulate them, but maybe to use them in a different circumstances, and completely change the atmosphere, completely can change the motivation of the people. Wonderful. Really, I really enjoy it. Is there any comment or a question before we slowly start to close down our panel discussion?
I just wanted to ask, because I was late,
No
so
problem.
will we be able to see it in YouTube?
Yes, Sibyl, this panel discussion has been recorded, and yes, association will put it on a YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. So what are Aukštinė, what are your future plans? What are your future research activities or any education activities or dreams that you haven't fulfilled in the topic of social sustainability? Can you share with us maybe some secrets of
Thank you, Lena, for the question. You know, the problem with me is that I have too many ideas and too and they're
okay,
only
we still
only
have the remaining
24.
10 minutes.
Yes, and there are only 24 hours in the day. So let me start with, let me sort of share with you just a very basically the current project that we are working on. I'm trying to copy the LinkedIn page. So we have a European project, I mentioned it already, ongoing, and the idea is that to really look at how to handle diversity management in small and medium enterprises, because as we discussed, so sort of, even if we have certain mindset can be there, but also there's skills and resources. And if we look at small and medium enterprises, they are the biggest unit of the economic backbone, right? So this is, yes, we hear a lot about the big corporations and they set certain benchmarks, but eventually small and medium businesses is where we can make the biggest economic impact if we talk about inclusion. So we're currently working on two things. One thing is to really develop a tool where companies kind of a self-coach, and this is kind of where I was mentioning that we could interview you. And of course, if anyone would like to share their views, please do get in contact, follow the page and LinkedIn, and there's quite a lot of communication already going, because we're trying to, because we just started, so we're trying to promote also other projects that are working on similar things, or the tools that we find on the way. So there's quite a lot of communication going on in terms of different findings that we get on the way. And in fact, soon will be posted a webinar that we ran with some super interesting cases, like Finvacon. And I think this is something, especially in Ukraine's case. In general, we're planning to write a teaching case about that. But this is like amazing case where almost half of the employees are people with disability, a lot of foreigners, a lot of gender inclusion, and sort of they are one of the fastest growing supplier of all the biggest regional cluster companies. So sort of that's amazing case how it turned to be a good for business thing, while actually CEO started with a point like, I just want to do good for people. So this is a project. So within the project, we have a plan to develop a digital tool where companies can self-coach, but educators can use that digital tool for education. And the book isn't being in the shaping, so the findings of the project, together with teaching cases, longer and shorter ones, where we can bring this to our education based on real companies and these kind of interesting learning experiences of how we can deal not only with people with disability, but also language. We still in Europe have one of the biggest problem, language. And even if companies say, oh, I don't discriminate by race or something, the major legal reason for rejecting somebody, oh, you're not proficient in a local language, right? And then it's a problem. So the language question, religion, age, we touch on that. Then caregiving, because not just parenthood, but caregiving is included. Gender identity, of course, LGBTQ plus community and stuff like that. So sort of some of the major dimensions, and we're trying to look at intersectionality of how does the company, from the business side again, can handle and integrate in the strategy. So we're keeping that focus. And then so this is one thing. And then if we look at a very, very short-term plan, so the book that we've been talking about, the handbook where you've published, I'm actually planning the trip to United Nations, because we've been invited to present a book in New York. So I need to book it, the tickets yet, and that's a short-term plan.
Congratulations.
So all of our
really
book, sort of all of contributions of everyone, and I think this is amazing that we could have. So this will be presented in New York for really very important audience, let's put it this way. And And yeah, and that's a short-term plan, literally. And then we need to still launch the book, so we still need to have the official launch of this book. I'm putting into the chat because some of us were late. So that's the short-term plan. But yeah, but the DI for SMEs is currently the focus, and the book from that with teaching cases is sort of there. And we'll see what happens, because within the Greenobed project that our colleagues participating, we've developed a DI training for teachers. So sort of we do have a chapter now out on the how to embed DI in education. So sort of that that is there, but then the training, regional training is going on. So I don't know how, if we can, you know, if we can move on. And I was just thinking I can share some resources actually here in the chat. So the LinkedIn is there, and we share a lot of resources, but then there are open access resource here. If you're thinking of teaching diversity. So this is something about how do I do it online, and there are quite a lot of online and other resources included of materials and everything. And including my video lectures, I do have some 4 video lectures about diversity management that are on YouTube. So, you know, feel free to use it and for your own teaching. It's a free material uploaded in, you know, in a public space, and I can actually share the YouTube channel that I run. It's not that many things, but then there's 4 lectures, and I mentioned also the podcast with the VP in technology company, where we talk about this very nice cases, sort of you know, how we sometimes we are discriminated just because somebody doesn't think from another side of the story. So there's a podcast there and these lectures there. So, and this is public resource. So if you want to embed it in your teaching, feel free to use it.
Lovely. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot for all these wonderful and inspirational ideas. Ausrine, I really appreciate, and a big thanks that you were with us for this panel discussion. I would like to express again how happy I am that somehow we met a year ago while we were, you know, starting to talk about, and I contributed to the book. I mean, I'm really honored, and I wish you all the best with all your plans and ideas, and just please keep in touch also with association with EUMMAS, I call it, you know, shortly, but also with all of the people, academics that are interested in social sustainability. Thanks a lot that as extremely busy person you are, that you find this time to join us for this panel discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Lena, and thank you so much.
Thanks to all participants, and hoping to see you all soon in any other occasion. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lena. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope you carry something valuable out of that.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
thank you for wonderful contribution, Lena, in the book. It's a collective effort and work, and really thanks for sharing great stories, also some reflections that we managed to exchange. And do keep in touch, connect on LinkedIn. And really happy to engage. And yes, if you know, it sometimes takes time till I respond because of the amounts of emails that are rotating, but I'll definitely be glad to keep in touch, and let's connect it on LinkedIn. And thank you for EUMMAS as well for organizing and promoting this important topic. Really appreciate it.
Thanks to all, and thanks to Ausrine. Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.